So I wanna share with you a story that has become somewhat infamous within our family, and it takes place a long time ago. So I was a long time ago. That makes me feel really old for what I'm going to share. I was 18 years old when this happened. My wife, who at the time was my girlfriend, was 16, and sometimes people will. My wife Bethany, she's worked with our teens for the last 2.5 years, and sometimes people will come up there with their teenage daughter, and their daughter's in a relationship that they don't like, and they were like, "Oh, I've got this, and I'm nervous about this," but she's only 16, and Bethany always says, "Oh, be careful." I married the guy I started dating when I was 15. 15. And it's always interesting. She'd go, "Well, how long did you date?" I said, "Well, 4 years. 4 years. So you got married when you were 19?" Which is true. And then what will usually happen is the people will look at me with deep-seated judgment within their hearts. And I go, "You married her when she was 19? And this is my response. I'll say, "Yeah, but she was tall." So my then girlfriend, now wife, is 16 years old. I am 18, and her family was going to take us to Montgomery Inn, the boathouse, of which there should be much rejoicing at all times. Yeah, but you need to understand, like, my family, it's always interesting when you start to get used to, like, the customs of someone else's family and the traditions of someone else's family. That we didn't go to the boathouse. Like, my family, we didn't go to the boathouse. We went to the Sizzler. Okay? Like, that's the kind of people that we were. And so all of a sudden, we're gonna go to the boathouse. And so I put on my nicest t-shirt and my least grass-stained pair of jeans. Okay, and so we're going to the boathouse. And so we're waiting there ahead of time, and there's like a 30-minute wait, so we're waiting for them to call our table. And I noticed one of Bethany's brothers, he walked down this like old, rusty set of steps. The handrail was rusty, the concrete was cracked, and he's right down, boathouse is right on the Ohio River. And so he goes down all the way down to the Ohio River, and he's skipping stones. Just got time to pass. We have no cell phones to occupy our time at that point in time, so that's how old I am. And so he's just down there and skipping stones. I was like, well, I'll go do that. I'll go talk to him. And so we walk down and we start skipping stones, and then it quickly moves from a leisurely activity to a competition, as it should. Well, so you can go further, so you can get more skips, see who can do all these other things. And so at this point in time, we have this like combination. We've set a criteria. You don't need to know the exact scoring, but it was points for number of skips and points for total distance is what we're measuring as a whole. And so he's going through, and then he's gaining an advantage, okay? Because he keeps stepping on this stone that's wet to skip it. So like there's this stone that's a little bit in the river. And I'm skipping from here on the side back here because that's the only angle I have. And he keeps coming way forward. And so he's winning. And I'm not going to let that happen. And so I get my stone and I'm about ready to skip it. And this is what I didn't think through is he's wearing sneakers. I'm wearing flip-flops. Flip-flops do not have the same tread and traction as sneakers. And so I'm ready to go, and I step on this slightly wet stone to make the skip, and I was okay, like my plant foot was solid, that was fine. I was good to go when I first did it. But then whenever I went to skip the stone, it changed the weight of my body, and my foot slipped out from underneath me, which would have been bad enough. But right as my foot slipped, a wake from a boat came in. So I slip and I fall, and there's a wake coming in, and you go, "Kevin, that's fantastic. That must have cushioned your blow." It did. However, wakes come in, and they go out. And so I'm there with my girlfriend's family, who I'm looking to impress at the Montgomeryan boathouse, and I want to form a relationship with her brother, and he's a couple years older than me, and I don't want to be annoying, and I don't want to look like a dork. And so I'm trying to win the skipping rocks competition, and I go and I step and I throw it and I slip, and the weight comes in and it drags me out into the Ohio River. And so I'm trying to keep, this is all the things I'm thinking through at the time. Now I'm soaked, but I'm trying to keep the front of my shirt dry. And so I am now backstroking to get back to dry land. And I hear Bethany's brother Alex yell at that exact time. I slip, I fall, I'm out. And I hear him not go, "Kevin, are you okay? Kevin, are you all right? Kevin, let me throw you a buoy and help pull you back in." I hear him yell out, "Oh my goodness, he's in the water." And so I backstroke to the side, I get up, I look at him as he's laughing at me. I'm looking at my kind girlfriend, who is laughing at me even more. And then I hear over the loudspeaker them call our party that our table is ready. So I go and I eat, completely soaked. And as we're getting up to leave, this is all bad at this point in time, right? Like, it's amazing that we're married, right? That I made it through that. And so, like, that's all really bad. But I have admittedly, completely soaked the chair that I'm sitting in, okay? Because I was just in the Ohio River. I don't smell so great because of the Ohio River, not naturally, okay? Just to be clear, because of the Ohio River, I don't smell so good. So I've completely soaked this chair. And I get up to go, and Bethany's mom, she tried to do it discreetly, but it was loud enough that I could hear. And I understand why that she didn't want anyone else to sit in that chair, because then they would be soaked, right? Like, that's just kindness. That's being a good neighbor right there. But this is what she said. So she pulls one of the servers aside, and she goes, "You want to replace this chair?" Now, I don't know why she said it like this, okay? And I don't think she meant to say it like this. She could have just been like, "He fell in the river and now his chair is wet," right? Like, that would have been a reasonable thing to say. That's not what she said. She pulled the server aside. "Hey, you'll need to get another chair. He wet it." Why? I don't even think she meant it like that. We're like, why? Why did you have to say it like that? He wet it. And so to this day, when I walk into Montgomeryan, which has only happened once since then, I feel like that feeling where you're just like, "Oh, I don't fit these people. I am out of place." Like, I have lived half a lifetime since then. And I'm still the 18-year-old who's soaking wet because he fell in the river skipping rocks. Like, that's how I feel. I feel like, oh, these people, they outclass me, which is true. Like, that's true in most circumstances. Like, these people, they're just not my people. You felt that? Where you like walk into a scenario, a situation, and it's like, "Oh, I don't fit here." Now I feel that way still when I walk into Montgomery Inn. Now, when I walk into Sizzler has since closed. When I walk into Golden Corral and I look at all the stretches of carbs and happiness that are being partaken of that morning, I go, and someone told me the other day, "Why would you go to Golden Corral? All they have good is desserts." And I'm like, first off, blasphemy. Second off, what do you think we eat? Like, I'm not going there for my diet. I'm going there but I walk in there and I go, "Oh, these are my people." Like, "Oh, I fit in here. I belong here." And we all have those moments where you like walk into a situation and you instantly feel belonging, or you instantly feel like an outsider. Like, you have those moments in which like all of a sudden you look at someone else and you just go, "Oh, we connect. Like, we're on the same page. We've got this." Or you have a moment where it's just like "Oh, this isn't gonna work. we have different sets of like humor, ideas. One of the closest times that Bethany and I came to breaking up while we were dating is we were watching the movie Gladiator, and she fell asleep. I mean, yeah. It's like, what? I don't even understand. Like, I don't know how this is possible. And we go, we search for places in which we connect. Ladies, if I lost you on the Gladiator illustration, you can understand it like this. Belonging and connection is why most of you go to Target and refuse to go to Walmart. Like, oh no, I will not go to Walmart. Why? They have great prices. No, never. And you walk into Target and you look at the dollar bins and everything, and you go, oh, these are my people. This is what I've been looking for. And this idea of like that moment that you feel belonging, that moment that you feel connection, it's a powerful thing. The moment that you instantly, you can go into a situation or a restaurant or a store or a family or a neighborhood, and you immediately look around and you go, I feel connection here. I feel like I belong here. It's powerful. It is. It's a powerful thing. There's been all this massive amount of research that has been done on the dangers of isolation. So much so to the point that isolation is actually listed commonly now as a public health crisis. Isn't that fascinating? Isolation becomes a health crisis because it can be so damaging to someone. It increases our risk of disease. It increases our risk of so many different things that isolation is dangerous, and we all know when we feel belonging. But this becomes the context of the story of Ruth, is we usually think that belonging is natural, right? Like we usually think in the moments like if I'm going to belong, I just either belong or I don't belong. I either like fit in, I get it, or I don't get it, I don't fit in, I'm not a part of that group, I don't connect with those people. But what Ruth shows us in this moment is she goes, belonging can be created. Belonging, connection. Not just for yourself, but for those around you who need it. It can be created in a powerful way. But it takes work. It's hard. It's often difficult. And I think one of the struggles we have within that is so often we want the most important things in life to be easy. And they're not, are they? We want the things that matter most to come naturally and not to ever have to feel forced. But what Ruth is going to show us that the important things cannot just be created, but they take work in order to do so. And so we're going to pick up the account of Ruth in Ruth chapter 1. And it's going to give us a little bit of background and context to her story and her life and the circumstances that she is entering into. And then some powerful statements in terms of what she does. And so this is Ruth chapter 1, starting in verse 1. It says, in the days when the judges ruled in Israel, a severe famine came upon the land. So a man from Bethlehem in Judah left his home and went to live in the country of Moab, taking his wife and 2 sons with him. The man's name was Elimelech, and his wife was Naomi. Their 2 sons were Mahlon and Kilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem in the land of Judah. And when they reached Moab, they settled there. Then Elimelech died, and Naomi was left with her 2 sons. The 2 sons married Moabite women. One married a woman named Orpah, and the other a woman named Ruth. So quick context just to make sure we're on the same page within there. What we find within this is we find these 2 Israelite people who have moved to this different land. The husband died, and the sons marry foreign women. The sons marry women who didn't know their people, didn't know their gods, didn't know their background, didn't know their customs, had their own customs, had their own background. It says another married a woman named Orpah, and the other a woman named Ruth. But about 10 years later, both Mahlon and Chilion died. This left Naomi alone without her 2 sons or her husband. Then Naomi heard in Moab that the Lord had blessed his people in Judah by giving them good crops again. So Naomi and her daughters-in-law got ready to leave Moab to return to her homeland. With her 2 daughters-in-law, she set out from the place where she had been living, and they took the road that would lead them back to Judah. But on the way, Naomi said to her daughters-in-law, "Go back to your mother's homes, and may the Lord reward you for your kindness to your husbands and to me. May the Lord bless you with the security of another marriage." Then she kissed them goodbye, and they all broke down and wept. Verse 10. "No," they said, "we want to go with you to your people." But Naomi replied, "Why should you go on with me? Can I still give birth to other sons who could grow up to be your husbands?" Now, I know for some of you read that and you go, "What is going on there?" Different time, different context, different place. Okay, could we just say that? Different time, different context, different place. It says, "No, no, my daughters, return to your parents' homes, for I am too old to marry again. And even if it were possible and I were to get married tonight and bear sons, then what? Would you wait for them to grow up and refuse to marry someone else? No, of course not, my daughters. Things are far more bitter for me than for you, because the Lord himself has raised his fist against me." And again, they wept together. And Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye. This is one of those moments in which Naomi originally gives go back home, go back home. And the daughter-in-law, Orpah and Ruth, both go, no, we'll go with you. And then she says again, she goes, "No, that doesn't make sense. You shouldn't do it. Go home." Okay. It kind of like when someone offers to pick up the check, right? You're out to eat and someone's like, "Hey, let me get that bill." And you're delighted, right? You're delighted that they're going to get the bill, but you don't want to be rude. It's like, "Hey, let me pick up the check." And you can't be like, "Sure," right? Because then you're a jerk. And so you give the no, I insist. Okay. You can pay. That's fine. You can pay. This is kind of what happens here. Naomi goes, go back home. No, we can't do that because it'd be rude to just immediately go, "See ya." But then Naomi says, she goes, "No, it wouldn't make sense." She goes, "If you stick with me, the likelihood of you marrying again is so small," which we need to understand in their culture, in their day. Marriage was not just about relationship. Marriage for a woman was about security. This is not speaking of what the Bible says. This is speaking of the culture of the time, okay? Understand that. That is not saying the Bible says women should marry for security. The culture of the time, that's how things operated. And she goes, no, you shouldn't do this. It'll be, you're not gonna marry my sons, which we all go, "That's weird." She goes, "No, it's not gonna work." And so Orpah right here, 14, first part of it, it says, Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye. Orpah does, we could all agree, what is reasonable, right? To go within here, if you stick with this, it's not going to go well. If you hang on to this, it's going to be difficult for you. If you stay in this place, if you stay in this spot, your life is going to be extremely hard. And so go, I'll give you an out. And so Orpah, it says she kissed her mother-in-law goodbye and leaves. And no one can blame her for doing that. Like, there is nothing wrong with what she did in the moment. She has every right to leave. She has been given permission to leave, and everything would make sense. Yes, leave. Like, logic would say, yes, leave. Your feelings would go, absolutely, yes, leave. And so it says, Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye. And then this is the really important part. But Ruth clung tightly to Naomi. Orpah did what was reasonable. Orpah did what would make sense. But Ruth does something different entirely. Let me tell you, we'll get back to verse 15 in a second. Let me tell you what Ruth does. If you're unfamiliar with the account of Ruth, what Ruth does is she returns with Naomi to her people. She returns with Naomi to a people in a group, in a nation that she had never met and she never knew. She doesn't know their customs. She doesn't know their habits. She doesn't know their practices. They would make jokes that she would not laugh at, and she would make jokes that they would not laugh at. I know exactly how she feels. Right, so she goes to this land of these people that, honestly, that she would look at and she would go, you're not my people, right? Like, I'm a Target person in Walmart. I don't know what I'm supposed to do exactly with this. I feel out of place, out of touch. And yet within this, what she does is she listens to her mother-in-law in this moment, and to make a 4-chapter story shorter, she secures her family's future. She takes the guidance of those who came before her, but even more importantly than that, acts on her conviction, not her logic. Acts on her conviction and not her feeling, and secures a future for her family. Secures their income, secures their safety. Secures in this moment where Naomi would have had nothing left. Ruth, in this moment, is her hope. Ruth, in this moment, because she does what is unreasonable, acts in a powerful way. I want to show you a little bit of what she does. Don't worry about jumping ahead in your pages. We're going to go to Matthew chapter 1 is where I'm going to be. Matthew chapter 1 for just a second. I want to show you how significant what Ruth does, the fact that she returns to Naomi. This piece in Matthew chapter 1, if you ever read through the Bible, this is the piece that you skip over, okay? Because right? We all have moments, like I don't know if anyone has actually tried to read through the Bible in a year or something like that, or done different Bible plans, and you get some of those spots where you're like, oh my gosh, all these names, I could not be more bored, right? That's Matthew chapter 1. In Matthew chapter 1, it gives the genealogy of Jesus, and this is what it says. And some of you, your attention span is like 10 seconds. Just hang on. 6 verses, okay? That's all I'm asking. 6 verses. Matthew chapter 1, it says this. This is the record of the ancestors of Jesus, the Messiah, a descendant of David and of Abraham. It says, Abraham was the father of Isaac. Isaac was the father of Jacob. Jacob was the father of Judah and his brothers. Judah was the father of Perez and Zerah, whose mother was Tamar. Perez was the father of Hezron. Hezron was the father of Ram. Don't tune out, okay? I know you're getting close. Okay, we're getting so close there. Hezron was the father of Ram. Ram was the father of Amminadab. Amminadab was the father of Nahshon. Nahshon was the father of Salmon. Salmon was the father of Boaz, whose mother was Rahab. Boaz was the father of Obed, whose mother was Ruth. If you keep reading, and I would, but I know there's no way on earth you can handle getting all the way to verse 16. So you're like, 6 verses, that was all I could hang on to. What you're going to see is this lineage is traced to Jesus himself. And there in the midst of this, we find a widow named Ruth. I think this is the thing that is pressed upon me more than anything else when I read Ruth's account on her life. Is we desire the extraordinary. We desire the exceptional. We desire to live profound lives, right? Man, I hope that's you. I hope the greatest imagination that you have on your life is not get through the day. I hope the furthest sense of your calling is not get to the weekend. Because I want to tell you, if that's all that you believe that God has called you to, you are living a life far less than the one that you have been given. And so I believe that. I believe that we have desires to live extraordinary lives, lives that are profound, lives that make a difference. But we act and only do what is normal. We act and only do what is reasonable. We act and only do what is easy. And there's so much that has been said in terms of like, you need to be true to yourself. You need to be true to what you feel. You need to live out of your feelings. You need to act on what you feel like you should do. And this may not be you. This is what I know about me. If I did only what I felt like I should do, I would never leave my couch. Like, I love to watch TV. I could go through so many seasons in Netflix if I just had a couple days and had permission just to act on my feelings. Oh, man. Like, I could knock out all 3 seasons of Stranger Things in a day and a half. Like, I've got no problem. I've got endurance for that if I only acted on my feelings. And so we have this conversation. This is, do what is reasonable. Do what you feel. Do what you should sense. But here's the interesting thing. How many of you know someone named Orpah? Not Oprah, just to be clear. I know some of you do the dyslexic thing, okay? Orpah. No. Because she's forgettable, right? Because her life is normal. Because she does in this moment what is reasonable. But Ruth we know. Ruth we remember. Ruth has her name within the account of Jesus himself. Because in a moment in which she could have done what was easy, she didn't act on her feelings. She acted based upon her convictions. She acted based upon not what was easy in that moment, but what she knew she was supposed to do. And so when Naomi comes forth and she goes, go home, it doesn't make any sense. This is what Ruth's response is. Ruth chapter 1, verse 16. It says, but Ruth replied, don't ask me to leave you and turn back. Wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you live, I will live. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. We wake up this morning to a sense of tragedy within our city and within our community. And there was this moment yesterday whenever I was reading the news of everything that happened in El Paso. And it's amazing how it's the same thing, but it's different, right? Same thing. Like in El Paso, we saw all these people gunned down. But somehow it's different because it's on the West Coast instead of in Ohio. And we wake up every morning and there's hardship and there's tragedy and there's difficulty. And there's things that should cause our hearts to break. And part of me understands that because the news media feed is only negative, it is easy for us to become desensitized to everything that has gone wrong in the world, and it has to be really close in order for us to feel that. I get that. I do. I get that. But I think it's just as easy for the things that happen right next door to us for us to become desensitized to them. And we hear about another couple getting divorced, and it's just common. We hear about someone else losing their job. And we're sad for a moment, but we got stuff to do, right? Like, who has time to weep when your kids are in soccer? Who has time to mourn when your task list is a couple pages long? And it's easy within all of this for us to become isolated without being aware of it. It's easy within all of this for us to live lives, and don't, please, hear this as confession, okay? Not stepping on your toes, okay? Hear this as confession. I'd step on my own toes, but I'm not that coordinated, and then I'd fall. It's easy, before you become aware of it, for your life to only be focused on yourself. It's easy for your feelings and for what is described as common sense to isolate you from everyone around you. But not Ruth. Not Ruth. Ruth could have acted on her own best interests, but instead, in a powerful moment, she looks at this woman who is hurting and is in need, who has made every argument for her not to help her, and says, your people will be my people. Your hardships will be my hardships. Your struggles will be my struggles. And we celebrate, in a sense, the magnanimity of Ruth in the fact that she is included in the account of Jesus himself. But I think even more important than that is what Ruth does specifically for Naomi. See, this is what I have found. It is easy to get people enthusiastic about changing the world, but it's really hard to get people enthusiastic about changing one person's life. It's easy to have strong calls of saying, we're going to make the world a different place. But the only way to make the world a different place is to make your neighborhood a different place, to help those around you. If you track just a little bit down through the story when Naomi returns to her hometown, verse 20, this is what she says when she walks back into her hometown. She says, don't call me Naomi, she responded. Instead, call me Mara, for the Lord Almighty has made life very bitter for me. Naomi means pleasant. Mara means bitter. She says, after I've gone through, I'm not pleasant anymore. I'm bitter. That is who I will be from this day forward. I will be bitter. It's made life very bitter for me. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me home empty. Why call me Naomi when the Lord has caused me to suffer and the Almighty has sent such tragedy upon me? But then this is the next line. It says, so Naomi returned from Moab. Oh, please tell me you see it. Go back to verse 20. This is her declaration. I am not pleasant. Don't call me Naomi. I am no longer pleasant. I am Mara. I am bitter. And she has every right to be bitter, doesn't she? Every right to be bitter. But then when it describes her in verse 22, it does not refer to her as Mara. It refers to her as Naomi. She, in this moment, had every desire to become nothing and to just lay down and die. She goes, no, I am bitter. I am going to allow my bitterness to consume me and become who I am, and that is who I am from this day forward. But Ruth is there, and Ruth is present. And so while she wants to become bitter, she doesn't become Mara, she stays Naomi. And in this moment, what Ruth does is she saves her. She saves her from a life of bitterness simply because she is there. We had kind of like this first event of Hope Week the other night. And it was like this movie in the park. And so we partner with the city and we do this movie in the park. we had this really interesting interaction at Movie in the Park. And yeah, some of you were there. And there were balloons. And I'm somewhat going to speak out of my ignorance, okay, because I don't fully understand the situation, nor do I care to. But that's probably a different story within there. And we had these balloons, and the kids, being small children and somewhat senseless at times, kept letting go of their balloons. Accidentally. It's not like the kids were there like, have you ever seen a kid lose a balloon? It's not pleasant. Like, they're not happy about it. Like, no kid is like, woohoo, within there. Like, they're pretty upset about it. And so the kids kept letting go of their balloons. And all of a sudden, there's a young man who's there, and I don't know his background, I don't know his story, but all of a sudden he starts screaming within the midst of this park about the kids losing the balloons and the ocean and the devastation that it was causing because of the lost balloons. And so I just didn't like, I don't want my kids to be scared. I didn't want there to be a fight. I thought, like, of all the ways to kick off Hope Week, let's not kick off Hope Week with a fight, right? And so I grabbed him, I just kind of stood there. I've gotten pretty good after a number of years as a pastor when someone's really mad about something of just standing there and nodding my head and saying nothing. Some of you have been on the other side of that. You know what was happening in that moment. I got pretty good at that. And then he was upset and he went away. And I could tell he was still mad. And I was like, I don't want him to come back. I don't want him to disrupt all the kids. And so I had this idea in my head. I go, I'll go invite him to Hope Week, because that's what Jesus would do. And so I went out to talk to him. And he started talking about all these different things. He's like, I just can't believe we're doing this in the 21st century. I was like, okay, that's fine. And he goes, and you guys. I was like, wait, I don't understand who you guys are. And I'm thinking throughout this entire time, I don't want Hope Week to start off with a fight, but I especially don't want Hope Week to kick off with a fight with the pastor. So I'm gonna avoid that above all else within there. And he goes, you guys are doing this. I was like, wait, I don't understand. Like, our church is helping put on this event. We're supporting it. This isn't necessarily our event. We have none of our people are manning the balloon station. He goes, well, you guys need to fix this. I was like, I have no authority here. I don't know what you're looking for. And we went through that for a while. And I said, we're going to be doing all these different projects throughout Hope Week. Would you like to be a part of that? Would you like to partner with us? And he goes, well, I'm raising my voice for the oceans. That's great. I didn't laugh at the moment, which is a miracle in and of itself. That's great. But I'm wondering that, like, instead of just raising your voice, yelling at small children here, would you like to, like, be a part of what we're doing to actually make a difference? Would you like to be a part of it? He goes, well, this is how I'm making a difference. And this is where I was starting to get a little nervous that I actually was going to get into a fight to kick off Hope Week. I was like, you're making a difference by screaming at children about their balloons instead of helping us serve the city? Yeah. Okay. And then he said, we don't have anything else to talk about. And he walked about 30 feet away from me, and I thought we were done. And then he started yelling at me some more. And I said, I'm not going to yell at you. I'm an adult. I only yell at my children. Like, this is kind of how I roll. And then eventually he went away. And I was just left with this sense of, and I don't mean this as a criticism to him, okay? I don't mean that. I do a little bit, just to be clear. Sorry, I said that earlier. Well, that's not fully true. There are too many people in the world who are willing to yell, but not help. There are too many people in the world who are willing to wear a t-shirt that has a nice message, but have a failure to live out that message. I got cut off the other day driving down a 2-lane road by someone, and they pulled in front of me, and the first thing I saw was their coexist peace sticker. Can't even manage peace on this 2-lane road. How's that going to work? And it is too common and it is too easy for us to raise our voice, to stand behind a banner or a slogan or a t-shirt and not actually do something that makes a difference. And the world is filled with Orpas who do what feels right and say what is easy. And the calling within this passage Is to go, while the world is filled with Orpahs and you see something that is wrong in the world, don't hope for a Ruth. Don't pray for a Ruth. Be a Ruth. Be the person who acts upon conviction. Be the person who does what they know they're called to do. And it's not easy, and it's not simple, and it doesn't always come naturally. But that is why we are here. That is what we are called to be, to make the choice ahead of time of I may not feel belonging, I may not feel like I should help, I may not feel like making a difference, and common sense may tell me to sit around and do nothing, but that is not who I am. That is not who I've been called to be. In John chapter 15, verse 16, we're gonna put this on the back wall. This is what Jesus says. He says, you didn't choose me. I chose you. When Jesus came from heaven to earth, his statement was not, this is gonna be easy, this is gonna be natural. He's saying, no, you are connected to me because I decided in advance that it is not okay for us to be separate, and I am going to fix, and I am going to solve this problem, and I am going to be the one that makes a difference. If you want to make a difference, you have to do something different than the rest of the world. If you want to be transformative, you must first be transformed. Because if you are not transformed, you will get tired, you will get weary, and your actions will eventually run out. And it's not just the ocean guy. This happens within our church as well. People say, well, I wish this, I wish that, I wish we had this. Do it. Ready? That's it. I wish someone was there to help connect this group of people. God has fully equipped and empowered you to solve the problems that you see, to be the difference that you need to be, to make the world a better place, not all at once, but one person at a time. And so as we look to Fairborn, and our initial conversation was, hey, we feel like there needs to be another church in Fairborn that fills this unique need. The churches in Fairborn are doing a fantastic job, but we felt like there needed to be another church. We didn't stand up and blame the Christian community as a whole as to why there wasn't a church. We did something about it. When we first talked to Robbie Brown about Ironton, he says, I feel like Ironton needs another church. We didn't go, well, Robbie, who should we blame? We claimed responsibility in that moment because it doesn't matter whose fault it is. It isn't until you claim responsibility for something that you're able to actually make a difference. Everyone's great at blaming. I have had enough time in my life of those who think their spiritual gift is criticism. I assure you, I am better, and that spirit does not come from the Lord, okay? You're gonna know we're not about blaming. We're gonna take responsibility within this. When we first had the conversation, we said, there is not a single recovery meeting in Beaver Creek. There's not a single recovery meeting in Beaver Creek. And Larry Howard came forward, he goes, I want to start it. And then we just heard recently that the recovery meeting that happens here every Wednesday night is the largest one that takes place in Dayton. Because we are people who claim responsibility instead of blaming. This is who we are. This is who we're called to be. And so when the world shows its worst, our response is we're gonna go and be hope. When the world absolutely says it's their fault, they're to blame, and all these things are going wrong, we minimize our desire within ourselves to blame, to criticize, and to sit on our rear ends and do nothing. And we stand up and we say, we're the church. And these people, they're my people. And their hurts are our hurts. And so even if we don't feel like it, even if we don't know the way forward, we're here and we're gonna help and we're gonna be hope. That's our call as a church. I invite you, if you would, could we stand together? Goodness gracious, you should have already been standing. I don't know what you're doing this morning, my goodness. My desire for every single one of you is not that someone would come and fix all your problems, which may be your prayer at times. My desire for every single one of you this morning is that you would be the answer to someone else's problems. Is that the hope that they need, that you would become. And we sang this song earlier. There's another in the fire, and we're going to sing just a piece of it again. But this is the amazing thing that I think about this song. Is I know in my life, the moments in which I needed God the most, it was Jesus, but it wasn't specifically Jesus who showed up. Does that make sense? Like, yes, God was there. Yes, God was present, but I wasn't looking face to face at Jesus. When I was hurting the most and struggling the most and needed help the most, God came. But he always came in the form of someone else. It was a friend. It was a family member. Sometimes it was someone who I least expected, who was there in that moment to offer help and to offer hope. It was someone else who became the answer to my prayers that made me know that God cared. Maybe you're the answer to someone else's prayers. Maybe when they look to God, they first need to look at you and know that you were present and that you were the one who was there and who cared. My prayer for you, my desire for you, is that in a world full of Orpahs, that you would be Ruth, that you would act on your convictions and not your feelings, that you would act on your convictions and not necessarily what was easy in that moment.